speechless, Brett. Speechless.
That was Kenny Orlando with some amazing moves in this week's viewer video.
I started playing hockey I was on skates at 3 years old. I was learning how to skate 3 to 4. I was probably in an organized league by the time I was 5. And that was just the start to my entire life. I never really went back. It was the only thing that I did. I invested so much time in. And from such a young age, I just continued to play in the youth programs that we had at our rink, travel programs. And more often than not, I was on teams with my dad. So whether we were at the house or we were at the rink, I was always looking up to him, and I aspired to be like him, playing the game, being involved with it all the time. And that's kind of what got me into the game. But then, I created my own love for it, and I never really looked back after that. So I played youth ice hockey and went all the way up through juniors and the college level.
Hockey was his whole life. When we weren't at the rink, we were at home playing street hockey. We were playing NHL video games. We were playing mini hockey. So everything was centered around hockey. He didn't really have any other interests other than hockey. So, I always knew hockey was going to be his whole life.
I was always on the smaller end, even before the growth happened. Like, even when we were all small, I was still the smallest. So I recognized it quite early, but you started to see the kids hit the maturity, hit some of the puberty, 12, 13, 14 years old. I would say probably around Pee-wee. So people that aren't familiar with the different levels of hockey, around between 10 and 12 years old, you started to see some of the other kids sprout, and you didn't. So that's when I really knew that I had to take advantage of the skill set that I had and not rely on such a physical being, but more of a ability standpoint, since you're such a small package.
His skill was definitely above everybody, especially when we were that young. I just remember he was real little too, so he was always one of the smaller guys. So you always looked out like, oh, who's this little kid buzzing around everybody? I remember him, nice shot. He had that huge banana curve for a stick blade, so he definitely stood out amongst everyone else. Even in practice, he was pretty fierce. Obviously, he was well above average at stick handling, and me being a goalie, it was hard. When you have time and space in practice, he would just come down and embarrass me a lot. Some of the moves that other kids would probably hurt themselves trying to do, he made it just seem, so easy. And, people see that still, how easy it is for him to handle the puck. Even though he's not playing, just coaching, it looks so natural to him. I
finished youth ice hockey around 16 years old, then went into the junior route, and the junior route wasn't mainly focused on getting that kind of scholarship or someone to look at me at the college level and see how it worked out. So even up until that point, I was still struggling with being the smaller guy, being less physically mature than a lot of these players. So I had to take the couple extra years of juniors and really live out my career and my experience until I was to the point where I matured physically, where people started to notice me a little bit more. And that's at the end of my junior route, that's when I got noticed for college hockey. The first one was a video I made here. That was a mess around video. Kind of just showed my skills that I was able to create over the years of practice with the puck, and having your own family business, being on the ice all the time. I was able to show that off a little bit. That video, it got me some good exposure. It got people talking to me, a couple scouts and things like that. It was just a good thing to have in my back pocket to show people, hey, this is what I can do. Obviously all of it isn't realistic in a game format, but it just shows some of your skill set. And then the NHL Network thing was something pretty cool. They'd never done an episode like that before, so I was the first one to have the opportunity to have an episode made about me and show a pretty cool highlight clip. That was in my junior stages, and I think that probably was one of the points of contact for these college coaches that started to look at me. That was one of the things that they noticed first, and then they continued to watch me, and that's how they started to invest in me, between the internet videos and then coming down and spending some quality time watching me in person.
Everybody tries to get recruited, especially when you're playing juniors. He obviously you reach for D1, but he definitely had a ton of interest at the Division III level, and he found Canton, and obviously he succeeded in the short time he was there.
I took it as it was a pretty good accomplishment. Obviously, I was seeking more along my way in the junior career. I had a couple Division I looks, just stuff that never really panned out. No one really seriously committed, but I didn't want to take it for granted. It was still an opportunity at the Division III level. I was pretty excited about it. SUNY Canton looked at me mostly that last season when I got traded over to Wilkes-Barre from the Flyers program. And so they got to see me a couple times, and we built a good relationship there. I would definitely look at that as a great accomplishment. I had a lot of fun there in my short stint before I had an unfortunate injury. But obviously I was always aspiring for Division I, and I think that I had the chances to do that. I probably could have done it, but it was something that didn't come up at the time, and I think a lot of that was a contributor to my size. I had two main concussions. I probably had one or two on the side, but the first major one was when I played in British Columbia. I decided to take on a couple defensemen 1-on-2 and got through one of them, didn't see a second one. I got blindsided. I ended up being out for the rest of the season, probably 3 or 4 months, and I got better from that one. For the next season, got to play my last final season of juniors relatively healthy. And then the main one that set me off was when I got to Canton. I got to play maybe the first 7-8 games. And in practice, I had an unfortunate bounce where I was going to reach for a puck, and my line mate, so we were both going to grab the puck. He wasn't even going against me. We were just both reaching for it, and his shoulder kind of hit my head, the same angle that I had from my injury in British Columbia a couple years before that. And it really, really set me off, and it was something that was obviously life-changing to where I'm at now, because I've never played competitive since, and I still have symptoms. But that was definitely the life-changing moment, was that injury at Canton.
I remember it pretty good. Because they were coming to play Newman at Aston. So my girlfriend is from Aston, so I figured, hey, that's a great opportunity. Go see her family, go watch Kenny. But it was that week before they came to play Newman that he got injured. It was right around Thanksgiving. And you could tell something was wrong with him, because we still went to the game and sat in the stands with him. But obviously ever since then, he hasn't played competitively, and it has affected his life.
The first season completed where obviously I sat out the rest of the year. I only got to play the first 7 games at Canton. That season completed, I finished school all year long struggling with concussion symptoms, very serious at that time, really serious issues actually. And that's when I made the decision that I had to go home. So towards the end of the year of Canton, I applied at Temple and got accepted, and decided I would make the switch just to come home, focus on my health, get my degree while I'm focusing on my health. And I was able to get into a pretty good program there with the sports management. I think it actually was rated #1 in the country. So I had to make the switch. It was for my health, just because I knew I wasn't going to be able to play the game again with how bad my symptoms were. So that was probably the toughest decision of my life, taking myself away from the game as a player, because I was chasing the dream as becoming a professional at some point after college hockey. So that was the toughest decision that I've ever had to go through, going back to Temple.
So when he went to Temple, I think at the beginning he genuinely did want to get back on the ice. I remember he got a jersey there. Obviously I was on the team, so it was nice, having one of my best friends be around, especially in college. But I remember him practicing full gear with us. Obviously no one could contact him, hit in practice, but I remember him working towards that, but he still wanted to be involved. So he slowly kind of worked his way, into more of a coaching role as a player. And then that slowly, the equipment started coming off at practice, and it was just the skates and gloves. And then he slowly worked his way into the locker room and eventually onto the bench towards the end of the season. And you could just tell he, was a natural at it. His passion and enthusiasm for the game. I
always had the coaching bug in me, just because of the private lesson stuff. I started that when I was 18, just teaching kids here hockey skills, handling a puck, how to shoot, how to pass, pretty simple stuff. But over the years now, it's been 8, 9 years of experience of doing that over summer after playing juniors or playing college, coming home and teaching that. It's become a lot more serious. My teachings have become a lot more intricate, a lot more detailed, and I think that the private instruction was something that helped me understand that I could be a coach. I could be someone to relay a message to a handful of players and teach them how to play the game and teach them how to carry themselves. So that was probably the number one contributor, and then second, having my hockey camp here in the summer, Camp KO. That's huge too. Being involved with the kids and seeing them from such a young age and being able to teach them hockey and teach them the game. The feeling of giving back is really second to none. When I transferred to Temple, I ended up skating with the guys just to stay on the ice for my own mental health, to not get rid of the game. But quickly after that, I hopped behind the bench, started helping them. So I was 2 years of assistant there, and like you said, the opportunity at Villanova popped up. And how could I say no to at least throw my name in the bag there? It's at our family's rank, and it was a head coach position, not an assistant coach position in the same league, but Division I club isn't really anything to be looked down upon. So I was really excited for the opportunity, put my name in, showed them that I wanted it and what I wanted to do with the program, and they bought into it. And it was a huge accomplishment as a first coaching position as a head coach. And I obviously aspire that there's a lot more to come, but I couldn't ask for anything more. I get to work here during the day, and I stay here for everything at night with my team. So it's worked out too well. I'm quite spoiled actually having my team in my backyard. Once I heard that I got the job, I was obviously extremely excited, and I started thinking at that point, who could help? Because everyone that was there before part of the program, they left. Everyone was out, so then at this point it was just me. And I was really, really thinking about all the names around here, and those two kept coming up into my mind. And I don't know if it was because they're my best friends or if because I just trusted their hockey knowledge. Maybe a little bit of combination of both, but at the end of the day, I asked them if they wanted to help, if they wanted to be a part of it, and both of them never questioned anything. They never questioned what they would get out of it, if there was any money involved. They wanted to be a part of it. So I think that contributed a lot of our success to those guys putting the time in as well, as including myself. But I wouldn't be able to do what we did this year without them. So they were a huge help for us. When I took over, they were a solid program, and it's all props to the guys. They put the time in. They care about it. It's their program. Our first year was quite a Cinderella run. I don't really think anyone expected much out of us. We had a lot of young kids, a lot of freshmen, coaching staff full of kids that were probably the age that could be their older brother. So a lot of people looked down on our team from the start, but the kids bought into what we were talking about, and they realized that we were a family. And pretty quickly, before we knew it, we were sitting in the championship in overtime against Drexel. So it's a pretty cool thing to be a part of our first season, and we didn't really fall off too much in our second season. We had an unfortunate bounce in the playoffs, taking a penalty with a couple minutes left. That ended up hurting us, but we made the playoffs again, and we were just as competitive as we were the year before. So the first two seasons I would count up as a huge success for those guys, but it's all because they want to put the time in. If we had a bunch of players that didn't want to put the time in, it would be a completely different story. We won the Club of the Year the first year we were there. So the same season we went to the championship game and lost in overtime. We had plenty of community service efforts, a lot of different team events that we did. I could tell that the school was noticing what we were doing the first season. We were just very outgoing, very community oriented, and it clearly paid off. I mean, they have 32 club teams, and we opened the eyes to them on the first season with the new coaching staff. They really were impressed with what the team was doing, and that was all on them. I mean, we guided them along the way, but that they wanted to do that kind of stuff, and the community involvement and getting people to the rink that want to be a part of our program and watch the games and cheer us on and travel on the road and watch us, like that was a big contributor to the reason that we got the Club of the Year first season.
It's definitely what he's going to do for the rest of his life. It's all he talks about. Obviously he's involved with the rink here, as I am. So, we went from playing hockey together to going to college together to now we're working together. And he has one of his favorite coaches is John Cooper. He has his whole kind of elite prospect coaching file taped on the wall to kind of remind himself how long of a journey it is to get to the top. So when you see dedication like that, you just know that's what he is going to do, because that's what he wants to do.
John Cooper, he's definitely my idol. He's been a role model ever since I made the transition to coaching. He's someone right away I took interest to. I don't know what it was. I think some of it had to be his story. He started out as a lawyer, then he ended up just coaching some high school hockey. Then he hopped into the juniors with North American and into the USHL, and he just climbed the ladder. And every single team that he moved up on, he was a head coach. Now I know that that's not likely for anyone. I know that you're going to have to take your lumps along the way. A lot of times you're going to have to be a second, third assistant, but just having that there as a motivation to see that the ladder is realistic if you put the time in. And I think that started just a couple years ago. Lightning had a couple great seasons, and I attribute a lot of their success to John Cooper. And then over the summer last year for my level 5 coaching certification, he was one of the speakers, so I got to really hear what he had to say and how his view on the game. And it's a lot of things that match with myself, so that's why I really enjoy and look up to him and enjoy him as a person. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I really aspire to be like him and follow in his footsteps, and he just proves that anything's possible. I think a great next gig for me would either be something Tier 1 or Tier 2 juniors, so United States Hockey League or North American Hockey League. If I didn't do something like that, I think getting involvement in the Division III NCAA level or Division I NCAA would be huge. Ultimately, if you're getting to the NCAA Div 1 or any sort of professional, that's kind of like the top dog spots, right, as a coach. So I would say building the resume a bit more, coaching a junior program, a prestigious junior program or a Division III program would be a great way for me to build the resume and just prove my worth to people at the next level that may not it might take a little bit more for them to buy in to me because I'm not an NHL player, I'm not an AHL player. Like I have to prove my worth, and that's going to have to just be built up through the resume. So I would certainly be considering any opportunities at the higher junior levels or NCAA level. I'm still struggling, definitely still struggling. So I think it's a fight that I'm going to have for quite a long time. I have all the same symptoms that I used to have, but I would just say that they're toned down. So I think it's something that you can get past. I think everyone's symptoms are different. If you talk to people about concussions, every single person has a different experience with them. But it's something that's made me strong mentally. I've had to fight through a lot, and it changes your life when you get up every single day and you don't feel right, and there's a lot of things that set you off mentally that you can't do, or maybe you need a brain break now, or little things like that where before you wouldn't even think about that. So I would say I'm still on the path to recovery, hopeful, and I've made some big steps in the 4 years that I've had the issues now. I've certainly made some big steps, but it's just not 100%. If I'm not working at the rink, I'm coaching hockey. If I'm not coaching hockey, I'm teaching private lessons. If I'm not teaching private lessons, I'm traveling around the world, going to different NHL rinks, getting different hockey experiences. If I'm not doing that, I'm probably watching the NHL on TV, probably playing an NHL video game somewhere. I'm probably drawing up drills in my bedroom. Like, it's just, I don't really know anything else. Hockey's, to a T, that's my entire life. So it's been a young, I would say a passion from such a young age, and I wouldn't really have it any other way. I wouldn't want to redo it. I love what I do, and it's definitely, I love what I do, and I'll love it at any level if I coach here for 10 years. If I were to move up to the whatever, NCAA, NHL, it doesn't matter. Like, just being involved with the game is something that brings me happiness. And like you said, you could explain me quite simply as just being involved with hockey 100% of the time.